chaos erupted in the hospital hallway. Doctors, nurses, and staff shouted over one another, each trying to explain why they couldn't admit the elderly patient.
"We can't identify his illness, and we don't have the right equipment for this,"
the head doctor barked, voice nearly a shout. But Mr. Roland Vaughan's camp wouldn't accept that. The billionaire lay pale and weak on a stretcher. "This is refusal of medical care," his attorney snapped, waving paperwork in the doctors' faces. "He could buy your entire hospital chain, and you're turning him away?" The lawyer pressed. The noise swelled, ricocheting off the cold walls. Camera flashes, hurried footsteps, anger tangled with fear. In the middle of that storm sat Nina, a quiet, unassuming custodian, perched on a stool beside the stretcher. On the days no one else wanted to step into Mr. Vaughan's room, she was the one who did. Now, as the shouting grew louder, she clutched at her ears. The noise overloaded her. Her head felt like it would burst. And then, unexpectedly, she began to sing. Soft at first, like a whisper, her voice growing clearer. A familiar lullaby. "Hello, it's Mr. Hope again. Come along with me to the very end, and I promise you will be delighted, thrilled, and inspired by this amazing story. Enjoy." Everything stopped. Time seemed to hold its breath. Doctors and attorneys turned, silent, gazing only at Nina. Mr. Vaughan, barely able to move, slowly opened his eyes. At the sound of the song, a tear slid down his cheek. A warmth long forgotten stirred in his chest, like an old memory returning. It was a quiet night in a private hospital in Manhattan, but inside the VIP room, the scene was different. Mr. Roland Vaughan, 77, a billionaire known for his vast companies and his name in the business world, lay in bed, almost too weak to move. His body was thin, his cheeks hollow, his skin so pale it looked as if life was ebbing out with each breath. Doctors pored over charts and test results again and again, yet none could find the root of his illness. For months he'd bounced from one hospital to another, across the United States and abroad, and the answer was always the same. "We can't determine what's wrong." The repeated refrain sapped him. With every hospital they visited, the list of hopeless possibilities seemed to grow longer. In the room, his attorney, Mark Nolan, sat by the bedside, phone in hand, temper short. Across from him stood Mr. Vaughan's 3 children. Richard, the eldest, aggressive and quick to anger. Veronica, second, impeccably styled, mind fixed on her father's business shares. And David, the youngest, quiet, distant from their father. "They really don't know what's wrong with Dad?" Richard asked, frustration spilling into his voice. 15 hospitals? Veronica muttered, adjusting her designer bag. Still no answer. Honestly, maybe this is an exaggeration. Dad can be a drama king. Richard snorted. Drama king? Look at him. He looks like a corpse. If this isn't real, I don't know what is. David said nothing, staring at the floor, unable to join the argument. Attorney Nolan exhaled. With respect, don't make it look like you don't care. I know it's difficult, but he'll feel it if all you can think about is the inheritance. Veronica shot him an irritable glance. Well, attorney, let's be real. What other reason is there? If he's not getting better, we should at least settle how everything will be divided. Business is business. Mr. Vaughan's hand trembled as he tried to lift a glass of water. None of his children moved. Attorney Nolan rushed over to help him drink, in a thin, hoarse voice. Mr. Vaughan spoke. All you think about is money. Not 1 ounce of mercy for me. Silence fell. Richard clicked his tongue. Veronica pretended to busy herself with her phone. David glanced up and quickly looked away. Days passed. Treatments continued without progress. The once powerful tycoon was losing hope. His birthday arrived. No greetings. No celebration. Veronica went to the spa. Richard had a board meeting. David didn't show at all. Alone in his room, he sat at the edge of the bed. A nurse had left a small cake, courtesy of the staff, not from family. He stared at the candle, its light small and weak, like him. He smiled bitterly. "Happy birthday, Roland," he whispered to himself. No one to hear. He cried, not from illness or fear of death, but from a lack of love. What use were billions when no one truly cared for you? The next day, his children returned, not to visit, but to talk business. "Dad," Richard began, "we need to talk about the properties. If you can't walk or sign, we have to prepare. Opportunists might swoop in, Veronica cut in." "Right. Investors are waiting. If you can't decide, everything you built might vanish." Mr. Vaughan closed his eyes and fought back anger. "Can't you see me as your father? Not a tycoon, not a billionaire, just a dad." No one answered. Tears gathered. "If only your mother were here," he added. "I wouldn't be this alone." David spoke softly, steadily. "Aren't you the reason Mom left?" Everyone froze. Mr. Vaughan looked at his youngest, pain and guilt in his eyes. Veronica shot David a warning glare, but it was too late. Years of resentment poured out. "You never taught us how to love. It was always business, money, the name. Don't expect us to feel anything different now." Mr. Vaughan hugged his own shoulders, shaking. He didn't know which hurt more, the illness that was slowly killing him, or the truth that none of his children truly loved him. Hours later, Attorney Nolan approached. "Sir, you should rest." "Stress won't help." Mr. Vaughan shook his head. "Mark, I'm useless. Even if hospitals refuse you, it doesn't mean hope is gone," the attorney said. "Not just for your health, for your family. Maybe someone will come along who truly cares." "If there is," Mr. Vaughan sighed, "I hope they come before I'm gone." Outside, footsteps echoed. Disinfectant scented the air. Inside, the chill of emptiness pressed close. Memories of youth returned. His wife, Lauren, long deceased, a part of his life swept away. Despite his wealth and power, that was the wound that never healed. As he closed his eyes, one thought hummed. "If someone loves me one last time, let it be for who I am, not for my money." In the quiet night, the billionaire's tears fell again, this time not for his body, but for a heart abandoned by his children and starved of true love. Morning was quiet. The corridor smelled of alcohol wipes, the air conditioning blew cold. At the far side of the hall, a woman bent over a mop. Nina, the soft-spoken custodian, moved with careful, gentle strokes, as if guarding against sudden noise. She had mild autism. Too much noise or chaos quickly overwhelmed her. She preferred early mornings when the hospital was calmer. As she pushed the mop, she hummed under her breath, a song for herself, unclear in tune, but tender and heavy with feeling. It helped keep her grounded. Her life was simple. A tiny room near the hospital laundry, wages barely enough for food, and small remittances to the foster mother who once raised her. No luxuries, no complaints. She'd say she was content. But behind her quiet was resilience, dreams that wouldn't break easily. Weeks into Mr. Vaughan's stay, the old man decided to walk the corridor. He was tired of the four corners of his VIP room. Ignoring medical advice, he slipped off his blanket and stood, weak, determined. He took a cane a nurse had given him and shuffled into the hall. Each step was slow. The hospital gown trailed at his ankles. The once feared titan of industry now looked like someone who could stumble at any moment. He didn't expect to meet her. At the end of the hallway, Nina was still cleaning, head down. When she noticed him, she rushed over, steadying his arm. "Sir, slow down, please," she said, voice gentle, full of care. Mr. Vaughan was surprised, not by the help, but by her reaction. No fear, no starstruck smile. Most employees meeting him scrambled to greet, shake his hand, ask for a photo. But this woman didn't seem to care who he was. She just helped him like any other patient. "Thank you," he murmured. She gave a small, genuine smile. "You might fall. Where are you headed?" "I just wanted to walk. The room feels like a cell." "I'm not sure you're allowed out, sir," she said, still holding his arm. Before he could answer, 2 nurses and a doctor rushed in, alarmed. "Mr. Vaughan, what are you doing out here?" the doctor nearly shouted. "Back to your room, now! You shouldn't be exposed to people in the hall." They guided him back. One nurse glared at Nina. "You! Why'd you let him walk? You should have called staff. You're just a custodian. You're not supposed to handle VIP patients." Nina flushed and lowered her head. "I'm sorry. I didn't want him to fall." "That's not your job," the nurse snapped. "If something happened, you'd be responsible." Nina's eyes widened. Her fingers trembled. She cupped her hands over her ears. The raised voice, the accusatory stares. They hit her all at once. She froze, like a child caught doing wrong. Mr. Vaughan saw it all, the contempt, Nina's helpless bowing. A sharp pain cut through his chest. "Enough," he said, soft but firm. The staff stopped. "It's not her fault I went out. I decided, and she only helped me. She alone." The nurses exchanged looks, stunned that the billionaire defended the custodian. They didn't argue. Back in the room, before lying down, "Mr." Vaughan took Nina's hand and smiled faintly. "Thank you. You're the only one who looks at me like a person, not as a rich man, not as a billionaire. Just a person." Nina stared, unused to praise. She only nodded and smiled shyly, then slipped out, still shaken. But inside Mr. Vaughan, something unfamiliar spread, calm he never felt from his children or anyone close to him. For the first time in a long while, he felt the warmth of genuine care, and it came not from a doctor, child, or attorney, but from a quiet custodian named Nina. Whenever the coldness of the room and his family's frosty indifference weighed on him, he found himself picturing Nina's gentle face, the fearless, uncalculating way she looked at him. Her care felt natural. At night, before sleep, a question circled in his thoughts. Why do I feel calm around her? In his VIP room, he lay staring at the ceiling, doing little but wait. For a man used to boardrooms, people asking favors, phones buzzing all day, the hospital's stillness was alien. Each day he felt like a prisoner tied to a bed, his body no longer under his control. One morning, as a nurse adjusted his IV, he spoke quietly. "Where's Nina?" The nurse paused. "Sir, which Nina?" "The custodian who helped me the other day." The nurses exchanged baffled glances. Why would a patient ask for a custodian instead of trained staff? "Sir, we're assigned to you. If you need anything, call us." He shook his head. "No, I want her with me." A few hours later, Nina arrived with a cleaning cart. She cracked the door open, peeking in. Seeing him awake, she hesitated. "Sir?" "Come in, Nina," he said. She stepped inside, mop and rag in hand, not used to being summoned to a VIP room, much less by a billionaire. "Sorry, sir. I'll just clean quickly. The floor might get dusty." He smiled. "That's not the only reason I asked for you." "I wanted to talk. I'm tired of being surrounded by doctors and attorneys. Their voices are cold. Yours is natural." Nina didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to long conversations, but there was gentleness in his tone. Pain, too. "What's your name again?" "Nina, right?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered. "That's the name my foster mother gave me." "It's simple and beautiful," he said. They spoke. Conversation didn't come easily to Nina. Long talks often overstimulated her, but with Mr. Vaughan, the pressure eased. Days later, asking for Nina became routine. Whenever nurses entered, he'd ask, "Where's Nina?" Please call her. The nurses wondered but couldn't stop him. When Nina was around, he was calmer, less irritable, less prone to complaint, simply listening. One afternoon, as Nina wiped the side table, Mr. Vaughan said, "I'm not used to this. In business, I control everything. Now I can't even command my own body." It hurts to think about. Nina looked at him, listening. She didn't say much, but he felt her presence. "Back then," he continued, "I could move millions with a single call. Now I can't even reach a glass of water." She walked to the table, took the glass, and handed it to him. She said nothing. It was enough. "Thank you," he murmured. "Unlike others, you don't see me as a billionaire. You see me as a man. You're a person, sir," she said simply. "A person who needs a hand." He smiled with a sigh. "If only you knew how rare that answer is. Everyone around me wants something. You don't." Weeks passed. Mr. Vaughan began to share more, things he never told his children. "I had a wife," he said one evening. "She was beautiful and kind. Lauren. I loved her, but she died too soon." Nina paused. "What happened?" "A storm. A tragedy. An accident," he said, tears threatening. Nina didn't know what to say. She sat, listening. "Every night I hear a lullaby my wife used to sing, for our child. It loops in my head. Sometimes in dreams I hear it, but in life there's no one left to sing it." He closed his eyes, picturing a smiling woman, a baby in her arms, an old lullaby on her lips, cool voice, full of love. "If I could hear that song again," he whispered, "maybe I'd feel like something in me isn't finished." Nina didn't know why, but her chest tightened at those words. She wanted to ask which song, but kept quiet. The next day, his children visited again, not for him, but for business. "Dad, papers need your signature," Veronica said, folder in hand. "Not now." "I'm tired," he replied. "Tired? You're lying down all day," Richard snapped. "Just a few signatures." Mr. Vaughan turned his face away and closed his eyes. After they left, Nina approached. "Would you like some water, sir?" He opened his eyes and looked at her. "You're the only one who understands me, Nina. Of everyone around me, you're the only one who doesn't talk about what I can give them. I wish I'd met you sooner." Nina's heart fluttered. She didn't know what to say. She didn't realize that in these simple moments, a billionaire's guarded heart was quietly falling for the peace a humble custodian brought. Night deepened. The hallway lights flickered in the rain's gusts outside. Nurses padded in and out, checking machines, though he barely noticed. With each breath, memories he'd tried to bury seeped back like rain through a leaky roof. "Roland," a voice echoed. Lauren's, cold with anger and hurt. "How could you deceive me?" The night of confrontation replayed. In their mansion's vast living room, she sat at the grand piano's edge. He stood, sweating, unable to meet her eyes. "I didn't mean to," he said softly. "Didn't mean to?" she shot back. "You didn't mean to run off with her? You didn't mean to love her? Tell me, Roland, what is she to you?" He couldn't answer. The truth was, he had fallen for the housekeeper. He didn't know how. One day he noticed the kindness, the warmth, the honesty he'd been missing in his rigid, cold world. "I didn't choose her," he whispered. "She just arrived. And I couldn't stop it." Lauren's sobs were not silent. Thunder outside crashed with her. "I gave you everything, family, children, respect, and you repay me with this?" He sank to his knees, reaching for her hand, but she turned away. Something broke that night, something that couldn't be restored. Weeks later, Lauren discovered the housekeeper's pregnancy. "She can't stay here," she said. arms folded. "Lauren, please," he pleaded. "There's a life inside her." "We can't abandon them. I don't care," she said. "My concern is our children. What are we supposed to face the world with if they learn their father has a child with someone else? Someone who lived under our roof? Number, I won't allow it." And so it happened. One night, while he was buried in work, Lauren had the housekeeper sent away to a remote town. When Roland found out, he nearly went mad. He raced off, following a direction whispered by a sympathetic staffer. But as he reached the road leading there, the worst storm of his life slammed into him. Wind dragged the car. Rain pounded so hard he could hardly hear. "Hold on," he muttered, gripping the wheel. "I'm coming." In a blink, the bridge ahead collapsed. Houses along a hillside washed away in a roaring flood. People screamed in the distance. He could do nothing. "No!" He tried to get out, but security forces blocked him. "Sir, it's too dangerous. You can't cross. Homes have fallen." His knees buckled. He sank into the mud. The woman he loved and the child she carried were gone. Days later, authorities declared no survivors. The house where she'd taken shelter was buried under earth and stone. No bodies were found. To Roland, it was the end. Lauren stayed, but distant, cold. She never forgave him. Years later, she fell ill and died, without a kind word for him. The children grew up full of resentment, treating him like a stranger who bought their presents with money. Now, in his hospital bed, he still heard the housekeeper's voice, a lullaby, gentle and steady, telling him not to be afraid. Was it Lauren singing when their children were small, or the housekeeper when she cradled the baby in her womb? In dreams it was one. In waking, he could not tell. The next day, Nina entered to clean. She dusted the table, straightened the curtains. He said nothing at first, then asked, "Nina, did your mother sing to you when you were a child?" She froze, eyes dropping to the floor. "I don't know. I never knew my mother or father. They say I was left in an old house as a newborn. An elderly woman found me and raised me." Roland said nothing. He shut his eyes, listening to the rain. Left in an old house. His chest ached. The story stirred a wound he thought sealed. For nights he couldn't sleep. The lullaby returned, clearer than ever. He didn't know if it was memory or imagination, but one thing was certain. The past would not leave him. No wealth, no gleaming deal could conceal a simple truth. He was a man who made grave mistakes, shattered his family, and failed to save the woman he truly loved, or the baby he never saw. That afternoon, the three siblings met in a private conference room. Richard sat straight, leather folder thick with documents. Veronica lounged, one foot propped, a cigarette in hand despite hospital rules. David hovered at the edge, anxious, phone in hand. "We can't wait," Richard began coolly. "While Dad's alive, control of the company must be clear. We can't risk him losing his mind." "Relax," Veronica said. "He's still breathing. He can sign anything if he wants, or he could give everything to someone else." "Like who?" David asked, lowering his phone. "Like that custodian he keeps asking for?" Veronica laughed. "Exactly. Our father, of all people, finds comfort in a woman mopping floors." "What's with her?" Richard's jaw tightened. "I don't know, but one thing's certain. We cannot let someone like her interfere. We're talking billions. This isn't a game." "Yesterday he called her daughter," David said. "I heard it. What if he meant it? What if he makes a legal move?" Silence sucked the air out of the room. Veronica spoke first. "If that happens, imagine the humiliation. People thinking a janitor has a right to our legacy." "Poor Mum. No, absolutely not," Richard leaned back, eyes closed briefly. "Then we act. We get her removed. Hospitals are for clinicians, not custodians playing family with VIP patients. Especially our father. How? David asked nervously. She has a contract. And Dad might get angry. Angry? Veronica scoffed. He barely has the strength. Even if he shouts, who'll listen? And if they do, they'll forget. What with his so-called mystery illness? Don't be cruel, Richard snapped. He's still our father. Really, big brother? You're a comedian now? Veronica smirked. But fine, we can't let his whims stand. I'll talk to hospital administration. Conflict of interest. Unprofessional conduct. She's out. Good, Veronica added. Better than a scandal where Dad calls a custodian his daughter in front of staff. Embarrassing David fidgeted. But what if he has a reason? What if... No, what if? Richard cut in. Don't show weakness. Think about the company's future. If we don't move, one day we'll read in the paper that half our family's shares are in a custodian's name. That evening, they entered Mr. Vaughan's room. He sat gazing out the window. Nina adjusted his blanket. Dad, Richard said, evenly. How are you feeling? Richard, Veronica, David, good to see you. Mr. Vaughan brightened. He glanced at Nina. Daughter, could you get me some water? The three stared. Daughter? Richard repeated, chilled. Do you mean her? Yes, Mr. Vaughan said simply. She's kind. She takes care of me, more reliable than nurses counting the minutes. She's like a daughter to me, Veronica laughed too loudly. Hear that? A daughter. Dad, did you forget? We're your children, not her. She's just a custodian. Heat rose in Nina's ears. Ma'am, I'm only doing my job, she said softly. Your job is to clean floors, Richard snapped, not pretend you're family. Do you know who our father is? A pillar of industry. And you? A table wiper, a cleaner, just a janitor. Nina couldn't answer. She bowed her head, gripping the water glass. Mr. Vaughan's voice cracked through, stronger than they expected. Enough. Do not insult Nina. She is not ordinary to me. She is my daughter in my heart. If you can't respect that, leave this room. Dad, Richard started. Mr. Vaughan turned away, back to the window. Outside, the siblings fumed. See? He's lost it, Veronica seethed. If we let this continue, he'll will everything to that woman. Not if we act, Richard said, cold. I'll bring in the hospital and the lawyers. We won't lose inside. Nina quietly wiped the table, hands shaking. I'm sorry, child, Mr. Vaughan said gently. I'm sorry for what they said. They don't know everything. I do. In my heart, you are like my daughter. Nina's tears spilled. Yes, sir, she whispered, full of feeling. That night, despite the venom from his own blood, Mr. Vaughan chose the presence of a humble custodian who brought him peace his family never could. The hospital was a storm the next day. At the nurses' station, Attorney Nolan planted his hands on his hips, voice booming down the hall. Mr. Vaughan could buy this hospital chain, he shouted at the head nurse and surrounding doctors. You have no right to toss him like he's worthless. He's not an ordinary patient. The head nurse's eyes flashed. Mr. Nolan, we understand your position, but there's no medical basis to keep him on advanced machines. He's not in a coma. He's not critical. His vitals are stable. Using those facilities is unreasonable. Unreasonable? Nolan nearly leapt. What's unreasonable is forcing him out without alternatives. He's a pillar of society. He's contributed more to this country than your entire staff combined. On the sidelines, Richard, Veronica, and David watched with pinched faces. Do everything, Richard whispered icily. Dad doesn't leave. Not yet. Not until we know what's in that will write, Veronica murmured, barely containing herself. If he's discharged, we lose control. We don't even know what he wrote, David swallowed. If he leaves, it'll look like we abandoned him. We need to wait. I know, Nolan barked. I'm trying to reason with them, but they refuse. If you push Mr. Vaughn out without a proper transfer, we'll see you in court. Inside the room, Nina sat with hands pressed over her ears. The yelling outside beat against her chest. Each word felt like a spear. She wasn't built for this kind of chaos. She was used to quiet work, sweep and wipe. But now the world sounded like war. She glanced at Mr. Vaughn, eyes closed, face strained, breath heavy. She moved to his bedside, still trembling. Sir, please don't worry. I'm here, his lips parted. Nina, he whispered, tears beading. I don't want the fighting. It tore at her. She couldn't silence the hallway, so she did what her heart knew. She sang, softly, like a breeze. A lullaby she'd carried from an echo of a mother she never knew. Plain, unadorned, warm. At first, no one noticed. The shouting went on. Then slowly, the noise thinned. Footsteps quieted. Eyes turned toward the room where the voice came from. The song flowed like a tide, brushing ears and hearts. Veronica forgot her cigarette. Richard's palms went cold. David stood stunned. Even Attorney Nolan, moments ago booming, fell silent. Mr. Vaughn woke as if from a nightmare. His eyes opened. At the voice, weight lifted from his chest. He sat up and broke, crying openly for the first time in years. Mildred, he whispered through tears. Your lullaby. I can hear it again. His hands shook as he gripped Nina's fingers. I've waited so long. Dad? Richard asked, rushing forward. Why are you crying? He didn't answer. He sobbed, clutching the custodian's hand. The man known as ruthless and unyielding was now a wounded elder, begging for warmth. For the children, it was a shock. For the attorney, a lesson. For Nina, a burden suddenly lightened. Her simple song had brought peace to a long-suffering heart. When the lullaby ended, quiet returned. Mr. Vaughn closed his eyes with a small smile. Thank you, child, he whispered before drifting to sleep. Nina stayed, quietly crying, not out of sorrow, but because of feelings too big to name. Outside, people slipped away, no one daring to speak. The hospital learned to breathe softer. That night, everyone saw how a song could tear down walls built by time, sin, and greed. Before dawn, Mr. Vaughn sat up, restless, lamplight casting soft shadows on his face. All night the lullaby circled him, the one Nina sang. When he closed his eyes, a woman's voice returned, an old memory he had buried. The source wasn't a ghost or a trick of the mind, but Nina, the custodian he'd thought just a cleaner. The door opened gently. Nina came in with a tray, tea and toast. She looked tired but smiled. Sir, I brought hot tea. Maybe it'll help you sleep again. He watched her, questions in his eyes. Only when she set the cup down did he speak. Nina, he said carefully, where did you learn that song? She froze, hand hovering over the cup. It's just a song, sir, she said, trying to sound casual. I don't remember where I heard it. It's like someone used to sing to me, but it's not clear. It just came back. That's not just any song, he murmured, almost to himself. It's Mildred's lullaby. He bowed his head, covering his face. Mildred was our housekeeper. Only she sang that in my home. I haven't heard it since she vanished. Nina swallowed. She didn't know the name but felt the weight of it. Maybe it's a coincidence, she said softly. I don't really know where the lullaby came from. But in Roland's heart, a seed of doubt took root. How could it be coincidence? That lullaby was carved into his bones. It wasn't a tune picked up on the street. Later, doctors filed in for routine checks, nurses with them, and Attorney Nolan. The 3 children arrived as well. The neurologist, Dr. Sanders, looked up from the chart. Mr. Vaughn, staff mentioned you heard a song last night. May I ask what it was? What does a song have to do with his condition? Veronica snapped. A lot, Dr. Sanders replied. Music can trigger memory. It can hint at conditions like Alzheimer's. The siblings exchanged looks. Alzheimer's? Richard barked. I thought you couldn't diagnose him. And you wanted him discharged. Lullaby, Mr. Vaughan whispered. I heard Mildred's lullaby. Mildred? The doctor asked. Who is she? Our housekeeper, Mr. Vaughan said, staring into space. Only she sang that song. Interesting, Dr. Sanders said. Do you recall if your wife ever sang lullabies? Richard, Veronica, and David shook their heads. No, Richard said. Mom wasn't a singer. She liked quiet, classical, piano, opera sometimes, but never lullabies, Veronica added dryly. David nodded. In that case, the doctor said, last night's observation is even more telling. We'd like to run a cognitive test, non-invasive, to check for early signs of Alzheimer's or another dementia. Absolutely not, Veronica shot back. You want to make our father look unstable? No one said that, Doctor, Sanders replied calmly. It's better to know early. Richard barked, we won't consent to him being a guinea pig. Any test needs our approval. Mr. Vaughan decides, the doctor said. If he consents, we proceed. All eyes turned to Mr. Vaughan. He was quiet, gaze fixed on Nina's hand resting near his. What do you think, Nina? He asked. Everyone started. Sir, Nina stammered, I'm not a doctor. But you sang the song, he said softly. You brought back a memory. I want your counsel. Nina bit her lip, feeling the siblings' angry stares. If the test helps you understand what's happening, maybe it's worth trying. There's nothing to lose, Mr. Vaughan nodded. Let's do it. When the doctors left to schedule it, the room flared with his children's outrage. What is happening? Veronica shouted, pacing. Now Dad believes a custodian's lullaby? Number. This can't continue. If they diagnose Alzheimer's, Richard hissed, what happens to the company? To the empire, he'll lose credibility. He could forget us, his legal heirs, and there might be clauses that trigger automatically, David added. We don't control the future. Calm down, Attorney Nolan said. Stay close to your father's decisions. The test isn't final, and whatever it shows, there are ways. He values you. My God, Attorney, then tell us what's in his will, Veronica cried. And why is he listening to Nina? Who is she to advise him? Richard turned to Nina, voice cold. Be careful. Whatever game you're playing won't last. I'm not playing any game, Nina said, trying to stay steady. I only want him to get better. Enough, Mr. Vaughan said, voice quiet but clear. No more shouting. I want the test. That's my decision. When the others left, the room settled. Mr. Vaughan looked at Nina, eyes soft. If you truly don't know where you learned that song, why do I feel like I've known you for a long time? Maybe it's the music, she said quietly. Sometimes songs feel like memories we can't place. But how do I explain this feeling? He whispered. What if you're the answer to an old question? Nina said nothing, fingers curled around the teacup, unsure whether to smile or be afraid. Outside, the sun crept up. Inside, old shadows stirred, carried on the wings of a simple lullaby that should never have been heard again. Early morning, the corridor's hush was broken only by soft nurse steps and the hum of machines. Nina stood by the bed, folding last night's blankets, slowly, carefully, trying not to make noise. In her pocket was a small keepsake she always carried, an old necklace. The pendant was worn but precious, the only relic of her earliest days. As she tidied up, it slipped from her pocket, thunked softly against the floor, and skittered into view. Mr. Vaughan glanced up. What was that? Nina stooped quickly, scooping it up. Nothing, sir. Just a little trinket. But he had seen the pendant, and color drained from his face. Wait, he said, voice trembling. Let me see. It's not important. I said, show me. Startled by an intensity she'd never seen in him, Nina handed it over. He closed his fist around the pendant, eyes widening. No, impossible, he whispered. The heart-shaped charm was scratched, its latch nearly rusted, but the engraving in the center was still clear. R.V. Lightning shot through him. 20 years ago, he'd given that necklace to Mildred, the housekeeper he'd loved, a promise token he never thought he'd see again. Mildred, he breathed. Sir? Nina asked, startled. He lifted his gaze to her, studying her fully for the first time. The eyes, the curve of the mouth, the way she moved, familiar. It can't be, he whispered. Are you Mildred's child? Nina froze. Child? I don't know what you mean. I don't know any Mildred. Just then, Richard, Veronica, and David entered with attorney Nolan. They heard Roland's whisper, Mildred, our child. The three traded looks, electrified by a name they'd long banished. Mildred, Veronica said sharply. Isn't that… They didn't finish, but their eyes agreed. Yes, the housekeeper who vanished, the name that had no place in their home, the woman who ruined their family. Dad, what are you saying? Richard asked carefully, fear under the calm. This is the necklace I gave Mildred, Mr. Vaughan said, and Nina has it. How else, unless she's Mildred's daughter? David's eyes went wide. What? You mean you have a child with the housekeeper? Dad, what the… Roland trembled, but did not retreat. It's possible. It's more than possible. Nina stood with hands clasped like a child, unsure. Sir, I don't know. I've had the necklace since I can remember. They said it was with me when I was left at the orphanage. Child, he whispered, voice breaking. You're Mildred's daughter. Veronica nearly dropped her bag. This is insane. If it's true, she has a claim. Dad, do you know what that means? We can't move freely while she's here. Exactly, Richard said. If she's truly his daughter, she has a claim to everything. Number, this can't be happening. The room stilled, heavy with the weight of those words. Nina looked from one to the other, confused. I don't want anything from your family, she said softly. I never asked to be part of this. But the seed of fear had been planted. The Vaughan siblings united in one thought. They would never be free while Nina remained. Mr. Vaughan stared at the pendant, whispering, Mildred, our child. By noon, the private conference room simmered again. The air conditioning hummed. Cold water sweated on the pitcher, but the air felt like a storm. Richard, Veronica, and David sat with attorney Nolan. I won't allow it, Veronica snapped, nearly knocking over her glass. That woman won't wreck us. Mildred already did enough damage. Now some random daughter shows up to take our name. Over my dead body. Calm down, Richard said, though his own anger was obvious. If we don't get ahead of this, Dad will believe she's Mildred's child. Then goodbye. Everything, exactly, David said. Earlier he'd felt pity. Now anger had found him too. I won't let a custodian wipe out our inheritance, or our reputation. Our mother gave everything to this family, Veronica said, voice low and bitter. She kept quiet even when Dad was out of line. If we accept Nina, we betray Mum's memory. Richard turned to Nolan. What's your advice? How do we prove she's an opportunist? As your attorney, I'd say start with legal footing, Nolan replied. Right now she has none. No documents, no DNA test. That necklace isn't proof. Then we use that, Veronica said. Make her look like a gold digger. Spread rumors she's using her shy act to get close to Dad. If her reputation cracks, she'll back off. Careful, Nolan warned. Slander could backfire if she's innocent. Then we make it look real, Richard said. Fabricate believable evidence. By the next day, whispers slithered through the hospital. In the nurse's pantry, they say Nina's using Mr. Vaughan. Seen her talking to the lawyer about money. Really? Didn't peg her for that. Quiet ones are dangerous in the ER hallway. Poor Mr. Vaughan, sick and getting played by an opportunist. Nina felt it, a chill in people's eyes, the turned shoulders, the whispers at her back. 2 nurses passed as she swept. What's that custodian doing in the VIP room? Maybe there's special service. They laughed, leaving her flushed and close to tears. That night, Richard and Veronica visited their father's room, settling in like concerned children, but with other aims. Dad, Veronica began softly, dripping drama. Not everyone who comes close has good intentions. What now? He asked. It's about Nina, Richard said. Staff say she's using you. Someone saw her with an envelope. Looked like cash. Maybe she's taking advantage. I'm not a fool, Mr. Vaughan said, frowning. Nina would never. I know her better than you do. Please, Dad, Veronica said. Remember, Mom? Didn't Mildred fool us once? Do you want that again? We just want to protect you. What you need to protect is your own greed, Mr. Vaughan said, jaw set. It didn't end there. With help from accomplices, they framed Nina. While she organized supplies in the utility room, a nurse approached. Nina, can you help carry these meds to storage? I don't have anyone to go with me. Nina agreed, kind as always, but there was a camera and a plan to make it look like she was stealing. As she carefully stacked boxes, Veronica and Richard burst in. Caught in the act! Veronica cried. Nina's eyes flew wide. No, these aren't mine. I was just helping. Liar! Richard barked. We knew you had a plan. You've been using Dad to get access. Now you're stealing. Opportunist guards and staff rushed in. The scene spread like fire. The next day, hospital administration summoned Nina. She stood before the director. Richard and Veronica wore thin smiles. Miss Nina, the director said coolly, this is unfortunate. Because of last night's incident, we must review your employment. If the accusation proves true, you'll be terminated. Tears spilled from Nina's eyes. It isn't true. A nurse asked me to carry the boxes. They aren't mine. The door opened. Mr. Vaughan entered, leaning on his cane, eyes sharp. No one accuses her like that, he said evenly. Nina is innocent. I will personally attest. She never used me, never stole, and she is not an opportunist. Silence fell. His voice, though gentle, landed like thunder. If anyone deserves suspicion, he added, it's my children, who slander the only person who's cared for me without an angle. Faces reddened. No one replied. Veronica and Richard burned with embarrassment but kept their poise. Nina trembled, head bowed. But for the first time, strength uncurled in her chest. No matter the lies, someone believed her, and that someone was Roland Vaughan. That night, the city lights fought the dark beyond the window. In bed, Mr. Vaughan stared at the ceiling, mind swirling with images. Nina crying as he defended her. The question that nagged, why can't I stand to see her hurt? The door opened. Nina entered with a tray, water and pills. Sir, it's time for your meds, she said softly. I'm sorry, they might really fire me. He studied her. Sit, he said gently. I want to ask you something. She sat by the bed. The wall clock ticked. Earlier today, he began, I defended you. You're probably wondering why. Yes, sir, she whispered. You didn't have to. I'm just a staffer. I don't deserve that kind of protection. But I did, he said, and I can't explain why it hurts me to see you harmed. I want to know about you, Nina, he went on, her eyes widened. About me? Where did you grow up? Who are your parents? I don't know, she said, confused. I'm adopted. Adopted? Yes, she said quietly. I never knew my real parents. They say when I was a baby, I was found in floodwaters, wrapped in a wet blanket, floating on a piece of wood. Someone saw me and saved me. Mr. Vaughan sucked in a breath, clutching his chest. When was this? He asked, voice shaking. Years ago, Nina said, during a massive storm on the Gulf Coast near southern Louisiana. The whole town went under, they say. That's where they found me. The world tilted for Mr. Vaughan 22 years ago. A storm, a vanished woman. Mildred, he whispered, pain thick in his throat. Sir? Nina asked. He covered his mouth with a trembling hand. It can't be, and yet, the timing fits. He sat up, eyes bright with emotion. Are you sure about your story? Yes, she said, near tears. They told me over and over. I was a miracle they found. But I've never known who my parents are. My God, Nina, he whispered. Is something wrong? She asked, frightened. He couldn't hold it in. He gripped her hand, hesitant, hopeful. Nina, you're my daughter. Her eyes flew wide. His tears fell freely. You're my child, the one I lost 2 decades ago. Your story aligns with everything. Back then, I loved a woman, Mildred, your mother. She left with our baby. I didn't fight for her. Then the flood came. I've regretted it ever since. And now you're here, with the same story, with the necklace I gave your mother. There's no doubt Nina shook, sobbing. I don't know what to say. All my life I wondered who my parents were. And now, you? Not just anyone, he said, pulling her into an embrace. I am your father. You are my blood. You carry the Vaughan name. He cried, truly cried, in front of her. Forgive me for all the years lost. If only I'd found you sooner. She clung to him. If this is true, thank you. I finally have a family attorney, Nolan, passing in the hall, overheard and paused, frowning. If confirmed, this would upend everything. Down the corridor, the siblings fretted, certain something was changing behind their father's door. That night began a revelation that would alter their family forever. Restless, Mr. Vaughan stared out the window, mind made up. This can't rest on a feeling, he told himself. I need proof. The next day, when Dr. Sanders came by, Mr. Vaughan leaned close. Doctor, I need a favor. Confidential. Not even my attorney can know. The doctor hesitated. What is it? A DNA test, Mr. Vaughan said. For me and Nina. The clipboard nearly slipped from Dr. Sanders' hands. A DNA test? You mean, you understand, Mr. Vaughan said, firm. I need certainty. It's the only way. The doctor nodded slowly. We'll do it discreetly at a lab off-site. Do it, Mr. Vaughan said. Tell no one. Especially my children. When Nina brought breakfast a few days later, she noticed he was unusually quiet. Are you okay, sir? She asked. He gave a small smile. We're going to do something, for my peace of mind. What is it? A DNA test, to confirm what I believe. I know this is hard to accept. If you agree... If it will bring clarity, she said, voice breaking. I agree. I have nothing to hide. In a small room, samples were taken. No witnesses, only the doctor and a tech. A secret tucked into darkness, as the flame of truth flickered to life. But secrets seldom stay buried. One evening, Veronica slipped into her father's room while he was out. On the desk lay a brown envelope, unsealed, a page peeking. DNA Laboratory Services. She pulled it out, reading the details. Nina's name plain as day. What is this? She hissed. A DNA test, she called her brothers. Minutes later, the three sat in their father's office, the paper between them. No, Richard said. If it comes back positive, we're done. We won't allow it, Veronica said. She can't become part of this family. That woman, Mildred, ruined us once. She won't take everything now. David, quiet but finally hardened, said, We need a plan. If we can manipulate the result, we do. Release day arrived. In a small office, Roland, Nina, and Doctor. Sanders waited, faces taut with nerves. The doctor opened the envelope, pulled out the paper, and spoke. According to the analysis, it's a match. 99% probability. Nina is your biological daughter. The world stilled. Tears flooded Roland's eyes as he gripped Nina's hand. You are my daughter, Nina sobbed. It's true. I have a father. Before they could celebrate, the siblings burst in with papers. We don't believe it, Veronica shouted. Fake, you rigged it. That's impossible, Doctor, Sanders said. This came directly from the lab. We don't trust it, Richard said. There's collusion. Nina cried, not from anger, but from the weight of it all. Why are you like this? I'm not trying to take your money. I don't care about your inheritance. I only wanted to know who I am. Liar, Veronica screamed. You're using our father's pity. Roland stood, shaking with fury. Enough! Nina is my daughter, and nothing will change that. Fight all you want. This is the truth. The next day, the news exploded. Business tycoon Roland Vaughan fathered child with former housekeeper. DNA confirms long-lost daughter. The city reeled. Newspapers, TV, social media, Nina's name blazed. From humble hospital custodian to headline, gold digger, opportunist, illegitimate. In the hospital, whispers hissed from every corner. Eyes turned cold. She didn't know where to stand. I don't know if I can bear this, Nina sobbed to Roland, fingers clenched around his hand. I never asked for any of it. I only wanted to know you. He pulled her close. You're not alone. I'm here. I won't abandon you, not even if the whole world fights us. In a dark conference room, Veronica, Richard, and David seethed. This can't be happening, Veronica thundered. There's still a way, Richard said coolly. We challenge the results. We flood the media. We break her name until she breaks. Weeks after the DNA result, something strange happened in Roland's chart. I can't explain it, Doctor, Sanders said, scanning the data. By all earlier indicators, mister, Vaughan should be declining, but the opposite is happening. He's stronger, thinking clearer, even brighter. Roland sat at the bedside, smiling as he watched Nina arrange flowers sent by friends and employees. Doctor, not all illness is in the body. Some of it lives in the heart. Heal the heart, and the body can follow. Dr. Sanders nodded, half amused. I rarely see this. There are no signs of Alzheimer's. The earlier symptoms might have been stress, guilt, sorrow, but now, you're going home. Nina burst into tears and hugged her father. Thank God you're okay. Roland held her tight. You are my miracle, child. Since you came, life returned to me. Days later, Roland convened a special dinner at his estate. Long curtains, candlelight, a chandelier, like a scene from the past. His 3 children sat together, uncomfortable. Roland entered in a simple suit, Nina in a white dress. For the first time, he stood straight, a long-lost smile on his face. Good evening, he began, voice warm but steady. Thank you for coming. I've waited for this silence held the table until Roland spoke again. I know I failed you. I buried myself in business, forgot your dreams. I hurt your mother when I loved Mildred. That sin cracked our family. I'm sorry, Veronica trembled. Dad, how could you do that to Mom? She suffered. I watched her cry while you were gone. Tears rolled down Roland's cheeks. There's no defense. If I could go back, I would. All I can offer now is an apology and proof I'm willing to change. Richard, tight with anger for years, blurted, "And what? Accept Nina like nothing happened. What about Mom? What about the years of pain?" Nina touched his arm. "I never wanted to take your place. I didn't ask for any of this. I only wanted to know my father. I'm not here to replace your mother's love." David said nothing, but the truth pricked him. None of this was Nina's fault. "I know words aren't enough," Roland went on. "So before tonight, I transferred to the three of you the shares and properties that are rightfully yours. Everything due to you is now in your names, not to buy forgiveness, but because it's overdue recognition." Veronica's eyes widened. "You gave us everything?" Roland nodded. "Yes, whatever happens, you are my children. Nothing changes that. I loved your mother. I love you. And I love Nina." Veronica burst into tears, rushing to hug him. "I forgive you," she cried. "I let anger eat me too long." Richard stepped forward, heavy steps softened by emotion. "I'm sorry, Dad. If you've already given us what's ours, I have no reason to doubt. Let's start again." David placed a hand on his father's shoulder. "We still love you. And if your heart can accept Nina, ours should too." Roland wept with all three. "Thank you. My heart is full. In the days that followed, healing came easier. Nina, despite the slander, chose forgiveness. One evening in the garden over coffee, she told them, 'You tried to humiliate me, called me an opportunist, tried to bury the truth. I forgive you. I can't forget the pain, but I choose forgiveness so we can start as a family, not enemies.'" Veronica stared. "Why are you like this? Why forgive us before we've fully accepted you?" Nina smiled gently. "Because the people who raised me taught me humility, and that love is stronger than anger." Richard sighed. "You're the better child among us. I don't know how you have a heart like that." "I'm no saint," Nina said. "I just try to do what's right." Change in the Vaughan family rippled into business. At a major board meeting, Roland rose, Nina's hand in his. "Friends," he said, "for decades we focused on profit and growth. I've learned that wealth is empty if the heart is hollow. From now on, we'll dedicate a larger share of earnings to philanthropy, scholarships for underprivileged students, clinics for those who can't afford care, and disaster relief for families swept aside by storms. If we once thought only of business, now we'll think of people." Some applauded, others looked uncertain. Nina simply smiled, joy alight. "Dad," she whispered, "thank you. It means everything." "Don't thank me," he replied. "You inspired me. Your humility and kindness changed me. You taught me that family and love matter more than money. Thank you for listening. It's your tale master, Mr. Hope. Make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories.